All right. Hello, everyone. This is Luigi from Mexico, and I just want to show you real quick this expression I wrote for After Effects expression selectors. As you probably know, text animators use selectors to know where inside the text to apply some parameters, such as position or rotation or color. And of course, the range selector is the most common and the easiest to use selector because you just need to specify a range. So for instance, 0 through 50% is going to select half of the characters in this case, because we're based on characters right now. We can be based on characters excluding spaces, words, or lines as well. We can also use indices instead of percentage to be more precise and make the selection. So for instance, 0 through 1 is going to select only the first character, or 0 through 10 is going to go from the beginning down to the 10th character, and so on. But the expression selector is far more interesting and harder to use because you need to use code and you don't have as much controls. There's only this amount value, the based on dropdown, and the code itself. And also, After Effects doesn't give you a lot of tools per se for this kind of expression. But the thing about expression selectors is that you have to find a way to relate these words with your text. Especially this one, text index, that which stands for the index number of whatever you're based on inside the text, source text. So anyway, this project began because in my day job we had this client that sent us this really bad font. Let me turn this up for a second. So this font didn't have a few characters we needed, such as question mark at the beginning of a sentence. That's something we use in Spanish, or tildes, such as this one or this one. As you can see, this is a single character, and also this one. So if you count your characters, 1, 2, 3, just one character. But if your font doesn't have this combination, you need to type something like E and then tilde, and then use a text animator to select only the tilde and then move it to the left to make it appear like this is just one character, right? So the problem with that is that you have to manually make the selection. And if the text changes, especially if you're using a range selector, you have to adapt and readjust over and over. So that was a problem because we had a lot of different texts to animate and to type to make this work. So the solution was to use expression selectors just to select those tildes and everything we needed to make this more dynamic and less painful. So let me show you. This is just a sample text, and I'm going to hide some things here. The whole idea of the expression is to check whatever the name of the animator is and find a match inside of the source text. So for instance, A is going to find all the A's, and this is also related to the based on dropdown. So right now we're based on characters and we are searching for A, just A. If I type B, AB, it's going to find all the A's and all the B's and so on. If I type E, it's going to find all the E's as well. If I change, for instance, to words, there is no word ABE. But if I type, for instance, in, there are two words that are actual words called in. If I go back to characters, of course, it's going to find all the I's and all the N's. So the based on value does matter. So that's the basic idea. But let me go one step further. I used the amount value, which was very useful. And each value of these three x, y, z stand for something. They have a meaning. So for instance, x is going to turn on or off the whole expression. If this is something else apart from 0 or 1, let's say 2 or -10, this is not going to work. So 0 is off and 1 is on. That's quite simple. But y and z are depending on which mode are we based on. For instance, characters are going to have a different meaning. So for let's say for characters and words, these two, y is going to represent the instance number of the match. Let's go back to something simple like e. So we have a number of e's all over this text, but if we say, okay, I want just the first e, that's the first e. If I want the 10th e, that's the 10th, or the 5th, right? One advantage of this is that you can animate this amount value. That's one of the reasons I used this for the expression. So anyway, characters, inside characters and words, the y value means the instance number. So let's see something like of. There is no 5th word of. That's why it doesn't select anything. If I go to 1, there's the first of. If I say 2, that's the second of. By the way, 0 means everything. If I have a 0 here, it means select everything. So we have two ofs inside this text. If I go to 1, this is first one. If I go to 2, second. If I go to 3, there's nothing. It doesn't exist, right? And what the set means inside characters and words is the item number. And I mean by that let's return to characters. We have O and F. So if the Y is the number of instance I want to select, the Z is the number of the item inside of the name of the animator. So for instance, I have two items here because I am based on characters and there are two characters, right? So if I type 1, this is going to select just the O's. Let's change to something like N, right? So AN, this is selecting all the instances, but just the first item. So the first item is A. If I type 2, this is going to select all the N's, because again, I am selecting from the name. I am selecting an item, right? So for instance, if I have an space, let's see, of or is, let's try is, and I go back to words, I am selecting the second item. And which one is the second item? Well, it's the word is. Why? Because I am based on words right now. So the first item is the word an, and the second item is the word is, right? So again, if I go back to 0, this is going to select all the instances and all the items, which are the words an and is, right? If I go back to characters, this is going to select all the A's, all the N's, all the spaces. I mean, there's no point on doing that, but it can do it. All the I's and all the S's. If I repeat, let's say I do this, it doesn't matter. It's just gonna find all the A's, whether I have 3 or 1 A's or whatever. Okay, so let me talk about the other two modes. When we are characters excluding spaces, we're talking about patterns. For instance, if I type TION, this is going to find a part of a word that matches this pattern. It doesn't matter if it's just a partial match, right? And as I said, the meaning of these values slightly changes. The Y still stands for the instance. Let's see, if I type 1, there's a first match, there's a first pattern. But if I type 3, there's a third. And I go back and there's a second match. But if I type 10, there's nothing. It doesn't exist, right? So again, if I have 0 and 0, it's going to select all with no distinction between instances. And the Z value, in the case of this mode, of this based on characters excluding spaces, stands for the character up to. And this is true for lines as well. And of course, on lines, we talk about lines and not characters. So for instance, if I go to the second instance of the match, I am selecting all the characters, the T, the I, the O, and the N. But if I type 2, I'm going to select just up to the second character from the second instance or the second match, right? So if I type 4 here, this is going to go all the way to the fourth match, but it's going to select just to the first 2 characters. If I type 3, there are 3 of the 4 total characters, right, in the pattern. And of course, 4 is going to select the N as well. And if I type 5, up to the 5th character, it's going to select nothing. And this is a behavior just like the other cases. And if I go to lines, let me return this for a second. The lines mode is slightly different. As you can see, I have both on 0 and there's nothing going on, because this is something I made on purpose, because normally when you select line, you don't select everything, at least with an expression selector. There's no point in doing that. So the way lines work is that you type, okay, I want the first line, that's the Y value. This is the second line. I mean, the Y value stands for the start or the instance. The instance of the lines, the total lines inside the text. So if I go to the 4th line, there's 4 lines, the 5th line, 6th line, and the 7th line is not going to select anything, of course. So let's go to the 3rd line, and the Z values stands for again for the up to item. Or let's see, if I type 4, this is going to select from the 3rd through the 4th line, or through the 5th line, right? Or if I type from the 2nd to the 3rd, or maybe I just want everything but the last line, right? So I will go from 1 to 5. But if I have, for instance, a 4 here and a 3 here, it's not going to select backwards. This is just the 4th line, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. If I have both having the same value, there's no difference. And again, this is going from the 4th to the 5th line.